I'm intrigued to have you develop further 2 points. One, your suggestion that you're trying to develop a new metaphysics, and two, your mention of relationalism. Can you expand on those two themes?
Sure. So my goal is to find some kind of bridge between philosophy, religion, and science, and by providing a kind of a metaphysics, starting with, okay, so first an ontology. And for my ontology, it's kind of relationalism. I believe that fundamental reality can be described not by a oneness or by separateness, but by some kind of interconnectivity, some kind of relationalism. And, you know, building on top cases that we have ontology, I also go through epistemology, and so I take these different ideas and I try to merge them together to build a kind of bridge. So we have, you know, we have pluralism, or sorry, we have dualism, right? We have materialism, we have idealism, we have dualism, but this is, you know, no one has really come up with some kind of ontology that can work across the fields. And, you know, I want to be able, or at least I want to delve into that to try to provide what I believe could be a workable ontology. And I also branch into epistemology. So I believe there are other ways of finding knowledge that are often overlooked by science, but philosophy gets into it. And I believe one of the motivations for science and for philosophy is this human longing, this human desire for something. We talk about like rationality. We talk about you know, doing science is like empirical evidence, but what we don't really quite often get to is this desire, this longing, this intentionality. There's something about the human organism that longs for something, that directs itself towards something, and whatever gave us this impetus, whatever gave us this drive, that I think is more fundamental or more important than these other, you know, this epistemology is dominated by different kind of interests that I think are not as fundamental as this kind of longing is.
Very intriguing, very intriguing. Nowhere in the 4 volumes that David has pulled together is it made evident that my PhD dissertation, well, one of its distinguishing marks is I think it had the shortest title of any PhD dissertation ever. I mean, PhD dissertation titles go on and on.
Yeah.
My dissertation was titled Relations.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
And basically what I was trying to do was develop a metaphysics that would be an alternative to substance-based metaphysics. I mean, for Aristotle, very explicitly, relations were secondary to substances. And rather than looking at the universe as a bunch of substances connected secondarily by relations, I tried to think what it would mean to start with relations and say that substances are the result of interactions among relations, that the relata are secondary to the relationships. And I tried to develop that idea from Aristotle all the way through contemporary philosophy. I mean, one of my guiding lights here, I claim to be Richard Rorty's first fan, because I discovered his work when he was just an assistant professor at Wellesley College, and he wrote a couple of essays on Whitehead that I thought were just brilliant. And so when I got to Yale Graduate School, I invited him to come to Yale to give a talk. And the other thing I did was spend many hours in the basement of Sterling Library because dissertations could not be taken out of that building. So I had to, I read Richard Rorty's dissertation, 540 pages of it, that was titled The Concept of Potentiality from Aristotle to Nelson Goodman. Something of a sweep, but it was parallel to the sweep I was covering. And I have always found Richard Rorty's stuff really interesting, except for his stuff on consciousness. I mean, a little bit like Dan Dennen, he is really an eliminativist. He really he does not believe that anybody's at home. But otherwise, I think he's brilliant. But anyway, so to your 2 points, new metaphysics and relationalism, I'm with you.
All right. I have a question. So do you feel, you were mentioning that you were writing about that the relation is more fundamental than the relata? Are you at that point? Or
Well,
like for me, I'm kind of torn between, like, I think that there's some kind of like, I think the way we see reality might be we try to interpret it and then we have two different views at the same time. I think there might be a view above that can handle both there being substances and there being relations as them being both fundamental.
I'm completely with you on that. I mean, it really doesn't make sense in my view to try to do metaphysics or ontology starting with basic elements and then building upon them. I think there are no basic elements. I mean, if you really take relationalism seriously, you say everything's related to everything else, and there are substances and relationships and who knows how much systems, self-organizing systems. There's an approach to ontology that I very distinctly reject. And that is trying to look at ontology as some kind of cosmic inventory management. You know, that you're there making distinctions between the stuff that exists and the stuff that does not exist. That's not how I want to do ontology. I want to figure out something about the features of the being of everything that exists, not inventory management.